My guest, Dan Williams. He is a gold medalist, masters competitive runner, a life coach, and a motivational speaker. He is here today to share the story of his emergency open heart surgery, his fight to stay alive, and what he decided to do with his second chance on life, where he crushed some major first times. So I'm excited to have you, Dan.
Well, thank you, Ann. It's
All right,
great
so
to be on your show.
excellent. So let's get started. You found yourself, did you know you had heart issues, or you just found yourself at the hospital one day and you were in a dire situation?
I did have, 10 years previous, the open heart surgery was in the year December of 2012. So I did have some stents about 10 years earlier. So I did have, some heart situations, but they were long forgotten. And I really wasn't, prepared or it was a total surprise in terms of how my journey started.
Okay, so you find yourself at the hospital. Now, did you had a heart attack and you end up at the hospital? How did you end up at the hospital and having a doctor tell you need open heart surgery?
Right. So I went in, I had some issues going on with my heart, and the cardiologist said, I think what we need to do is just, give you another stent, right? So I'm a veteran, and I went into the DC Veterans Hospital, Washington, DC, and I went in for what they call, there's no such thing as a normal procedure, but as all things can be normal. I went in for a stent procedure. And the next thing I remember was I have four beautiful daughters, no objectivity. They are absolutely gorgeous inside and out. One of my daughters was whispering in my ear, "Hey, Dad." Those were two words that still resonate with me as we speak. And what was happening, Anne, was that I was coming out of a 5-day coma. So during that
Oh,
stent
wow.
procedure, yeah, it was, and I didn't know where I was. I do remember hearing her voice in the middle of the night. The next morning, I woke up. Can't say woke up. I kind of came to, and my hands, wrists were tied to the bed because I was incubated, and I was very, very frightened. I didn't know where I was, what happened, couldn't remember, going in 5 days earlier. And it was only later that I was told the story of what happened between that stent procedure and me coming out of that coma 5 days later.
So did they put you in a control, like a force coma, or did you by yourself end up in a coma? Like, so take us then what happened? What was
Yeah,
the
so
back brief of what happened?
right, because I was in a coma. I was told this firsthand, so I trust everybody that shared this story, and the doctor confirmed it. And it's a great question because the coma that I was in was induced. And the reason it was induced is that going into the hospital for the stent procedure, I had going in pneumonia and I was on blood thinners, right? And so my doctor shared later that he would never operate on anybody with any one of three conditions: that recently had a heart attack, which of course I did, that was on blood thinners, or that, was, what was the third condition? The law of threes. On blood thinners. Oh, and obviously with any type of pneumonia. And my daughters asked my heart surgeon later, well, if you never want to operate on any one of those three, and my dad had all three, why did you operate? And his answer was, I had no choice. Your dad was going to die.
Hmm.
So I was, through the grace of God, the courage of a heart surgeon, and lots of prayers during those 5 days, I was able to recover.
So was it that when he opened you up, he realized your heart, like things were a lot worse than what he thought it was? Is that?
exactly. What happened was when they couldn't close me back up because the blood thinners, the blood was, it, the analogy was, what's a heart supposed to feel like? And the heart surgeon said, well, something like, the leather of a football, it's kind of like a rough. And when asked what my heart was like, he says, my heart was like cotton candy. And every time he pushed it, blood would come out. So what happened was they couldn't close me back up because of all the internal bleeding. And finally, they shipped, whatever they shipped, and whatever they got in time. And that was able to hasten the bleeding. And they were then finally able to sew me up. And again, complications still ensued because of the pneumonia. And, when you go in for any type of a hospital stay, especially anything to do with heart, the biggest concern is, catching pneumonia. And I had it going in. So that further created complications after they sewed me up and extended my stay at the VA hospital in DC.
Well, it's a great thing you pulled through. Now, that was a major event that happened in your life. Did that turn your life around right away?
You would think it would, right? You would think, just based on the highlights of that story, that, I would have broken the code. And, going into that situation in December 2012, now looking back, it was all in context. Of course, I was under a tremendous amount of stress. I was not exercising, and my eating habits were, nothing to brag about. And, stress is about 60% of a factor going into any kind of a heart situation. And so I had the perfect storm. And as I came out of the hospital a month later, I did, I was very green and scared. And obviously, it took me some time to get back on my feet and get back to work and into an active life. But then what happened, Anne, was I started to backslide. I forgot, I got comfortable. And my lifestyle over the next year and a half, maybe through 2013, really kind of started to slide back into those old habits, and to the point where I just felt uncomfortable. I felt bloated. I didn't feel energetic. I was over the crisis per se, but I had another situation going on, and that is I just was not fit, and my quality of life in terms of nutrition and exercise was, even with that lesson from the open heart surgery, was not there. And I think this is the most important part of the story, is that my bottom was not the open heart surgery per se. My bottom was just an inner voice literally came to me as I pushed myself back from the dinner table. And I said to me, Dan, you are in extra innings. What are you doing? If you don't change your lifestyle, you are going to die. And I realized at that moment that I needed to do something drastically different, because I was given the grace and the gift of a second chance.
Okay, so what was your first step towards making those changes?
I commend you on your hosting questions. You're like, this is like T-ball, right? Well, what I decided to do was, it didn't go away, that feeling and that epiphany moment. And I decided to return to, I had previously had been a marathon runner and ran track in school. And of course, this was back in my last marathon was a Marine Corps marathon. And thank you for your service. You were a Marine.
Yours.
Okay. So my last marathon was a Marine Corps marathon. So I had always a passion for running. So and this is, I think, the story of a new heart for life. My passion happened to be running. So I returned to that and started slowly walking 5 minutes, which turned to 10 minutes, which turned to 15 minutes. And then I started jogging, and I slowly got myself back into, shape, and started to feel the benefits of, as we have the saying that I love is motion versus medicine, right? It just, the benefits, will accrue if you put in the effort. And then the next connection was when you make a change in any change, this happened to be my change of life and spirit, doors open up that we could not even imagine. I would have sold myself short on what that decision and that walking would have led to. But what it led to was me being introduced to masters track competition, and which is a world of masters athletes that are 50 years and older. And we compete nationally and locally, the DC area, and internationally. And I was fortunate to become part of a team here locally under a coach. And so the camaraderie and the competition and the fitness kind of took on a new life with Masters Track, which I owe an extreme debt of gratitude to my teammates and to my coach and to and all my supporters. So that's kind of a little bit of the journey from going from the ICU to the to Masters Track.
Well, I definitely want to key in on some of the highlights of, the change really does happen when it's deep inside of you, when that, and sometimes it is a voice, it is just an understanding of the situation that you're in, and you're required to do something different moving forward. Like, that's the trigger. And then the other thing that I love about the story is that you didn't have the trigger and then go full out, like, because that's dangerous. People,
Right.
which I'm guilty of doing that. We go
Yes.
like going overboard, and then that doesn't pan out. So then you find yourself in a different mind state that's also not good. But, taking little steps
Right.
at a time is, a
Right.
really fabulous way of going at it. And then that led you to whole new opportunities, to a whole new
Right.
world. And that the fact is there's always new opportunities in a new world that awaits if you do take those small steps
Yes.
towards discovering, what
Right.
it is. So it's really wonderful. Now, so you encountered some firsts because you won some medals on this journey.
I did.
What was that
Um,
like? I mean, what was that? Because you find yourself older now. You find yourself having gone through some major events, and now you're competed at a higher level that you've ever competed before, and you're winning. I mean, what does that all feel like?
so it's a journey, and it's a learning experience, and it's a process. And I did everything. Um, as I came off of the walking and joined the track team and started to understand competition, and my juices started to return, I failed to recognize that the spirit that I had and the energy that I had and the enthusiasm that I had did not match up with. I am, proudly will tell you that I am 7 years old. So this was back when I
Wow.
was
Yeah.
67, 68, 69, right? So that youthful spirit was not aligned with, my aging body, right? And so shocker, I ended up making a lot of mistakes. I, I went out, ran too fast, too soon, had Achilles injuries, had calf injuries. And until I got under the guidance of a coach that really could understand masters athletes, and his name is Coach Harris, and our team is ITS, and it stands for Individual Training Specialist. So although we're a team, he works on you individually in terms of meeting you where you're at. But and what happened in that journey of going to those medals was a lot of trial and error, and trying to do things that I wasn't ready to do. And the lesson that I took from that was that whatever our journey is and how passionate we are, we need a team. We need accountability. we need guidance, we need a coach. And because our own enthusiasm would get us in trouble. So once I got under Coaches Harris's guidance, and really his whole theory is stay healthy. You know, um, it's easier to get to the finish line than it is to the starting line because of all the injuries that ensue with master athletes. So once I got back into a routine under that kind of guidance, then I started to really see my true ability as a 70-year-old now. And, you know, I'm proudly ranked in the top 20 in the 200 meters within my age group. That's the caveat, within my age group nationally. We're looking forward this year, as a lot of people are looking forward to events this year. We had as the Olympics were happening, were going to happen in Tokyo, we had our Masters International World Championships in Toronto, Canada. That was going to be in July. That was canceled. As a veteran, they have the Veteran Golden Games, and I was going to represent my, my local hospital in Martinsburg, West Virginia, in the Veterans Games, doing not just track training or track, 200, 400 meters, but also swimming. So I've learned that, like we all are learning, and this goes back to where we are today, that change will come at us sometimes at a rate that is too fast to adapt to. And we go through certain phases when we do that. So right now, the competitions I'm still staying fit. I've readapted, and now my neighborhood is my local track, and I'm doing hill training and trying to stay fit. But the success of the medals really, I'm proud of those, and I'm proud of my accomplishments. But the takeaway for the audience, that if I could share, making a decision, whether it's a crisis or your inner voice, and just taking baby steps, is that decision will lead you to places you won't even imagine. And although there are a bunch of medals upstairs, hanging, the real benefit is just the quality of life and the fitness and the energy and the ability to, be available and be present for my family and my daughters and my grandchildren, and to be able to be active, and just to not have that sluggish feeling of, something's wrong, but, you don't quite know what it is. And that's the biggest reward of all, just the quality of life that
I
physical.
mean, what's interesting in life is sometimes you have to step away from your past, and sometimes the future is in your past. So reconnecting with a passion or an interest that died on the vine, that didn't get, to the next level, and then realizing in a new phase in your life, you can actually take that to the next level. And, what's beautiful about your story is that, you are in your 70s and you're still fully embracing, being competitive and getting out there and continue to push yourself. And, life constantly keeps having a lot to offer if you keep going to life and saying, what do you got for me? Because, I'm looking for it, I
Right.
want it, and I'm going to engage in it. And it's absolutely why I tell people to start their journeys of first time in new experiences, taking those steps towards doing things they've never done before, to open up their world and to discover what awaits and what's available. So I think it's a really great story. And it's a bummer that the games are delayed, but hopefully by next summer things are normalized again. And it's really, I mean, I didn't even know this existed. So I think it's really great because it gives me something to look forward to. I'm 8 years away from my 50s. So, and my brother just turned 50. So I'm attempting to look into doing some of these master athlete competitions, because, especially if you have a competitive spirit, you don't get you don't have
Right.
to put it on the shelf just because you're getting older. Absolutely not. but I love it. And
Exactly.
I didn't even realize about the veterans game either. So I think that's really awesome. And I wish that was more
Yeah,
common
they've already put
knowledge.
them on the schedule for next year. They're going to be in the greater Lauderdale area, and they have the aside from the veterans games, they have the senior games, which last year were in Albuquerque, New Mexico, um, which is just to be around that much energy and youth. We had a 103-year-old woman, Julie Hurricane Hawkins, ran 100 meters. She's 103 years old.
Oh my
And,
boy, wow.
just the experience of being part of that crowd. And one message that I will share is that as my story goes with Masters Track, some people may be saying, well, that's great, Dan, but I don't do track. And how do I find and connect with my energy source that can get me to a point where you are emotionally and physically and spiritually? And what I share with them, and is that think about when we were young, what we loved to do. What, as a child, we had certain things that we just, enjoyed. And whatever that might be, try to connect with your youth, because because it's what I've just described to you in terms of the running experience. I have to also let everyone know that it is hard work. I'm not, it took a lot of dedication and a lot of perseverance. And I share with people that you need to start to get uncomfortable, or you need to start to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So it's going to be work, and it's going to be perseverance, and there's going to be days that you want to quit. So that's why you have to connect. I found track as my guiding North Star. Everybody's got one. Everybody's got something in that can reignite their energy levels.
Yeah, so I competed in women's physique back. It's almost been 10 years now, and I look at those pictures and I'm like, I'll never look like that again. And I'm like, stop saying that, because at 50 or 60, I might decide that I want to compete again. And there's plenty of 50, 60-year-old that step up on stage, and they're still competing, and they're in the best shape they can be for where they're at in life. So
Exactly.
it's, never say never, never, just don't have that kind of language. It's always a world of possibility, and the decision is always on you to decide what to do with those possibilities. So, all right,
Right.
let's move into the first time lighting round. So let's find if we can discover something to add to your list of things you've never done before. All right. So the way it works, if it's something you've done before, you would swipe up. And if it's something you've never done, not interested, it's left. And if it's something that you've never done, would like to do, then it's right. Maybe we'll learn some more about you. Okay, go to Oktoberfest.
Oktoberfest. Yes. Yes. I've actually been to Oktoberfest in Munich twice.
All
Uh,
right. What was your first time like? When was that?
it was, I've already told you my age, so I'm not going to give away any secrets. So I spent 3 years in the Army, a year in Vietnam, and then 2 years in Darmstadt, Germany. And I had friends visit me from the United States, and we made a journey down to Oktoberfest, and it was it was wild in terms of the most impressive thing about Oktoberfest I can remember is the women, these German women that were carrying around 12 to 15. And about, I'm not talking about beers. I'm
Yeah,
talking
they're
that thick.
massive and fair.
And just the festivity of Germans and how they partied. Um, it was Opera House. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
awesome.
You know what? But the beauty is, I bet you it has not changed since the day that you went. So it's something that stays very traditional. Is definitely Oktoberfest. All right. How about own a fish tank with fish in it? I know some people have fish tank for decoration, but actually I had a fish tank with fish in it.
So that would be a really far left, right? I mean, not done it or don't
Yeah.
want to do it. What is the left? What is the
Yeah.
left? Didn't do
Not
it.
done it, don't want to do
I
it.
haven't done it.
And you don't want a fish tank.
So I've not owned a fish tank.
And you don't want to.
Okay, not done it.
So it's never done it, don't
You're
want
freezing
to.
up on me a little.
Oh, yeah, we're having some connection bandwidth issues. Am I good?
Yeah, I probably shouldn't move. Yeah, don't really have any ambition. I'd love to eat fish, but I really am not really good with detail, and it seems like I don't know if I could be responsible enough to care and give the love to those fish in the aquarium and the chemicals and the water and the changing. So it's probably something that's not my sweet spot.
Okay. Very well. I admittedly I've never owned a fish tank, but I think it is something that I would do just because it can be like you get to create a whole other world for a bunch of fish, which I think would be kind of neat. Okay, attend an improv class.
No, not done that, but would like to do that.
All right, so we are going right on that one, adding that to your list. Have you ever had your car stolen?
Oh, no, I've not had it stolen. But going back to the Germany story with another fest that they had that was actually further north, Fasching, I think is what they called it. You were stationed in Germany.
Yeah, yeah, Bosching, yeah.
The Fasching. So, and I had a red VW, which is, there's about 2 quadrillion, VWs in Germany, and we parked the VW and then waltzed into the Fasching parade and streets, and we thought it was stolen. We just couldn't find it. And I mean, it was a hot mess. I thought it was absolutely stolen, but we were oblivious, and so that's probably as close as I've gotten to having a car stolen.
So how long did it take you guys to find it?
About 8 to 9 hours. It was
Wow.
scary. I think it took everybody to leave the streets for us to finally figure out where that red VW was.
Awesome. All right. Do woodworking.
Woodworking, yes. I have done it in back in my Cub Scout days. I did woodworking to earn some kind of a badge, whatever badges they were, Cub badge or what, wolf badge, who knows.
All
And
right.
I'll never forget, I did, I created a bird's nest, right? Not a nest, a bird, what is it?
House, birdhouse. Yeah.
Birdhouse, thank you. Yeah, I created a birdhouse. That was the extent of my woodworking.
All right. Awesome. Okay. Tap dance.
Tap dance. That is something that I absolutely, having roots of being Irish, and following river dance. And that is something that I would love to learn to do.
Oh, well, that is awesome. We're gonna get yourself signed up for a class once this, or just buy some shoes and take some online classes.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Donate toys.
Donate toys. I think, yes, in the corporate world, I was with, corporate companies, and we would have drives during Christmas. And remember myself and a couple of my colleagues going to Toys R Us and get, because we had assigned, somebody that, we were going to give a present to, and we had a blast at Toys R Us, figuring out what kind of bike. One guy wanted it with, really sharp and with flashy, and somebody else wanted it. So the three of us just had a, you would think it would be, go Toys R Us, volunteer and contribute, but we had a blast, and we contributed a small bike that we all kind of compromised on for someone that was not fortunate enough to be able to have one.
Awesome. Yeah, it can be a lot of fun to go shopping for toys you're gonna donate because you want to buy what you would like. You're not buying for a kid, you actually
Right,
buy for the kid you were because
right.
that's who like what would I want to get? So not that I don't like buying toys for like niece and nephew, but it's I don't know, it's a little bit more fun for some reason. Okay, try boxing.
Boxing, yeah. I have when I was in Germany. My most famous athlete that I just is Muhammad Ali, and I just from athletic, his athleticism, obviously his spirit. He's the one that lit the torch in Atlanta in the 1996 Olympics. So I always wanted to dance like a butterfly and sting like a bee. And so I did do a boxing match in the service, and the special services, Ann, right? And so I did get in the ring, and I danced until I didn't.
Well, it's an interesting experience to have, I'm sure, to get into a boxing ring. Yeah.
I did half of what Ali did. I danced like a butterfly, and then I got stung like a bee.
Right. Eat Lebanese food.
Like to do that, have not done that.
Okay. Play craps.
Play craps. I have been around casinos. Are you in the Las Vegas area?
I am. I am
Yeah.
in Las Vegas.
Okay, because I thought I saw one of your previous shows, and there was something about gambling, and so I do have a draw towards. I've been to Vegas, and we have MGM Grand out here, and I'm in the local Washington D.C. area. So in Maryland, they just opened up gambling, and I always have been intrigued by the craps table because they've said that that's your best odds. But I was always fearful, and I should now. This will be a first experience, right? Um, I mean, why not? But I've
Yeah.
always been fearful because I never really understood it. And there were so many people around, I was embarrassed that I would do something wrong. So I've always kind of shied away from the craps table, but I will do that as a first experience.
Oh, well, awesome. Way to be open-minded to giving it a try. I mean, I've never played craps either or the roulette. And I live in Las Vegas, but I'm not a big gambler. But one of the things that is on my list is to take classes. So I believe in educating myself first, taking the classes,
There you go.
and then stepping up to the table. I'm definitely more of a blackjack player, but I'm like, I'm gonna try all these other games as first
It seems like
times,
you're having a lot
you
of
know.
fun. There's always a lot of
Exactly. You don't need to put down a whole lot of crazy money. I mean, just, be willing to lose $100 or $40 or whatever and let it roll. So definitely be giving that a try. All right. So now we're going to move to today's prompt for our first time storytelling prompt, which is first flat tire.
Oh, the first flat tire. Oh my goodness. Let's see. The first flat, so the assumption is everybody gets a flat tire, right? And I would say that the I know I had flat tires when I was growing up, but I can't for some reason remember them. But I do remember one of my daughters. We were at the beach, and she's pretty independent in her own right. And I'm not really per se a handyman. It's again not in my wheelhouse. But she said, "Dad, I." She was parked across the street at the store. She goes, "I have a flat tire," and I was so and she needed help. And as a dad, there's nothing else a dad takes greater pleasure in. And then like, oh, and she was at the time about 18, 17, 18, very independent. So I just remember with the flat tire, it wasn't mine per se, but it was my daughter's, and being able to show her how to change the flat tire and fix it. And that was my moment of glory.
Yeah.
but being a girl dad.
Yeah, so I can't remember. I don't think I've ever had like a full blown out flat tire. I've had like deflated tire to where I was good enough to put air in it until I was able to bring it to the garage and get it changed. So my first, because since I don't specify, my first true like flat tire was on my mountain bike. And it's kind of a funny story. It was on my rooftop, so I wasn't even on it when the tire went flat. But I got caught up in a sandstorm on my way to San Diego, and when I got to the hotel, the bike was like all leaned over because the front tire had blown. And so I get the bike up to the hotel, and then I go to just untwist the tire off, and the thing is just stuck. I mean, it's really stuck. So I got a towel out to get some leverage, to just get the hook like up, and nothing. So, I walked away, came back, and, being a Marine and being
Yeah,
stubborn, and it's like,
right.
there's not, I open my own cans and my own bottles. Like I get I will go back to it multiple times and figure it
Sure.
out. And so I'm doing this and it's just not budging. And I'm like, dang it. So it was late. I went to sleep and I went to breakfast in the morning, and then I went to, like, I had to admit defeat. I go to the front desk and I'm like, it's gonna sound really weird, but can you send a man to my room? Like, it's not what you think. just, I just need a hand. So this
You mean
guy,
you literally threw up your hands and said, "I need help"?
yeah, I was like, can you please send a man to my room? So this guy shows up and he's trying to get it unlocked and it's not budging. And he's like, you're gonna have to put some WD-40, some grease on that. And I'm like, no, like the brakes are right there. Like,
Right.
you can't do that. And I'm like, just put a little bit more muscle into it. So I'm like literally telling him, like, just put more muscle into it. And so he gave it all he had, and then eventually he was able to unlock it. So I felt a little bad, and I'm like, well, this was really tough. I mean, he even had a tough time, but it was just so funny to go to the front desk and say, hey, can you send a man to my room?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, that would be awkward, right? Yeah, unless there was something, in the reason is.
yeah, I didn't even bother with that. I'm just because I thought it was hilarious. So I was like, oh, let's see where this goes. And
Perfect.
like, so the guy shows up and he's like, I'm not entirely sure why I'm here. And then I open the door and there's my bike in the middle of the room. And that was
Right.
probably even weirder looking. So, all right. So, final question is, how are you making the best of the current situation with the COVID-19?
Yes, yes. Yeah, isn't it such an irony that we all have such different lives, but we all are sharing this common thread of trying to adapt as best we can to the to COVID-19. So, there's, I was initially, with everything going on and just, this was going to be a big year. I had a mild depression. It wasn't, long, but it was just, maybe it wasn't a depression as much as the blues. And I just like, no, I mean, and then when I started to understand the seriousness of what's happening through this pandemic and the lives that are affected, then I really got a perspective of, how I could just wake up and be healthy. And that would be, my first gratitude prayer. And so what I've done now is I have 4 daughters, and here's a great example. One of my daughters had her 30th birthday and 31st birthday, and we had a Zoom birthday party for her, right? And we had the whole family there. And I've got a daughter in Kansas City, and with everybody's life, and when you're a dad and you're kind of now ready to have some quality time, and they've got their own lives. So what I've done is I've actually been more connected, if that was possible, with my daughters and family members through Zoom calls like this, and I've really kind of enjoyed that experience. And nephew in California, and so I've kind of taken advantage of the technology. And also what I've done with my New Heart for Life story, I do know that I need to pay it forward. That I do speaking, pre-COVID, I'd be doing speaking engagements. I would be doing seminars. I'm associated with the American Heart Association. So what I'm doing now, Anne, is now that I'm still and can think about how can I best pay it forward, not just the New Heart Life story, but adapting it to people that are going through monumental changes right now. And what can I do to help them through some of the principles that I experienced get through this crisis? And so I am contemplating doing, I'm doing speaking Zoom calls like the one we're doing right now. Friday, I'll be doing tomorrow, a Zoom call with 35 to 40 hospice workers who I've been asked to speak to, because you can only imagine hospice workers now going to homes and having to not just do what they normally do, which is heroic and caregiving to begin with. That's a gift. They're now having to go into homes and expose themselves to this virus, and with extra layers of stress that they normally have to their job. So I'm going to be doing some inspirational speaking to them tomorrow and hopefully lighten their load, if only for a day. And then some other speaking engagements on Zoom calls.
All
And I've
right. Well,
toyed around with perhaps maybe, doing something similar to what you're doing, but having guests come in at a business level and say, well, how is your business readapting and what's your new norm going to look like? And perhaps facilitating some of those calls.
oh, well, that's really great. Well, I definitely appreciate you taking the time to join me today on the First Time Storytelling broadcast and sharing your story. It was great having you.
Hey, it was a blast. And thank you for all that you're doing in terms of your journey has probably not been pointed in this direction, but I can just tell from the couple of weeks that I've gotten to know you virtually that you're providing a tremendous service to people out there in terms of letting them in this time of, what do we do with ourselves? Think about new experiences and trying different challenges. So thank you, Anne.
Well, thank you so much.